been said, a bard's life can often be a hard life, or hill and dale to rove and always move from town to town. And some folk have inquired if ever we grow tired of ranging all around the world and never settling down.
But one should be a little wary of remaining stationary, 'cause comfortable is lovely, but it's not the way we grow. When life starts to unravel, pick up your pack and travel. You'll find a strange serenity in places you don't know. Wriggle-dee-dum-dee-doo-da-terry-o-dee. There's so much to see beyond the open door. It's outward bound we go. Who knows what we'll find that we've never found before. Adventures waiting further down the road. It's waiting for you further down the road. You've got no map for showing which direction you are going.
But why start on a journey if you know where it will end?
And once you recognize,
to anticipate surprise, you'll relish every twist and turn that lies around the bend. Wriggle-dee-dum-dee-doo-da-terry-o-dee-da-dee-da-dee. There's so much to see beyond the open door. It's outward bound we go. Who knows what we'll find that we've never found before. Adventures waiting further down the road. It's waiting for you further down the road.
The world has got its demons. There are many reasons why you'd find it harder to be brave than be afraid.
But every life could use some danger. Every friend was once a stranger. Ships are safe in harbor, but that's not why ships are made.
Wriggle-dee-dum-dee-doo-da-terry-o-dee, dee-dee, a fwit-dee-dee-dee-dee. There's so much to see beyond the open door. It's outward bound we go. Who knows what we'll find that we've never found before. Adventures waiting further down the road. It's waiting for you further down the road. Adventures waiting further down the road.
Let's go!
And now you're gone. Hello, everyone. It is I, Madame bad. Honey! Hey, how the mic went out? Oh, it's like dead. Nope. And now it's back on. Can you hear me now? It was completely like no light. Is it just?
Sorry.
Did I just wiggle it?
Maybe just
I like picked
this cord might be.
shite. Okay. How about now? If you can hear me now, we're good. Thank you.
If it goes out, you can change the settings.
Yay, hear you too. Ooh, man.
To audio, different mics.
All right. Axio, can you hear me now? Because my mic is back. Axio, everybody, just some guy. Hello. All right. I'll just scream if there's a problem. No hands. Anyway, hi everybody. How about you, Axio? Can you hear? It looks like most of us have gotten it back. So I'm going to run through these comments. Again, hello, it is I, Onça. This is, of course, normally a slot for your regularly scheduled adventure, but we are on our slightly disjointed or adjusted holiday schedule. Danger Daddy has not been in his house for over a month, so we just got back a few hours ago, and he is very excitedly doing all of the things that you do when you get home, including unpack your car. Within minutes of us getting back, when I say kids, of course, our kids are young adults, but they are still young adults, not versed in everything. And they ran out and said, "We're so glad you're here because the trash thing is broken. The toilet thing is broken. The car is saying brake malfunction. And what was it? And one of the drawers in the fridge had jammed and they couldn't open it." Thank goodness we had arrived in just that moment. Apparently they needed us for everything. So we got it squared away. So he did a quick round of hug everyone, pat every cat, and do some maintenance. And now he is getting a little much needed rest and relaxation after 1,111 miles of driving to get back to our house. So I am going to do some tarot stuff with you all and just generally say hello because, of course, normally it would be Thursday. And Thursday we will be doing 1980s Thanksgiving instead. Usually we do disco Thanksgiving, but the vote of the people, he listens to the people, and the vote this year was for 80s. That's not nearly as mystical to me because I was alive then, so I don't really see the appeal. But I will tell you that one of our kids is doing hair metal and one of them is doing adamant. So we should get some good pictures. So I'm going to run through the notes here. Hello, Sir David Percival, Sally, Axio. Just saw both of you. Keona Bilby, have we met? I'm sorry if I don't actually know you yet in person. And if I do, perhaps I know you by another name. Hello, Hufflepuff. Hey, Zalani, how are you? Just some guy. Kara Chapel. We were thinking of you, Kara, and some well-loved cookies on our trip. Let's see, tarot and gossip time. That's right. Tell you how things go. Yes, Axio. I also just realized that little snippet of video was from last year's NOLA. The beautiful video of Prue as she played and sang for us all. Yep, sound out. He said, just don't touch the mic. Maybe the mic just fainted with enthusiasm when Paulo came in the room. Let's see. Sir David Percival says, I thought my exhaustion from driving back to NOLA was the event got to you. Yeah, well, there you go. Sounds back. Mic is back. How about now? Okay, I might need to refresh. Caught up. Definitely don't recommend the 2,700 mile round trip. Oh, right, because you guys have a whole extra jag to drive. It is a National Lampoon's 80s Thanksgiving. So allow me to explain before we get into a little bit of tarot today. So as those folks of you who were with us in New Orleans on the New Orleans Destination D&D trip, we wish everyone was there. It was a great time overall. Every time we run one of these events, we learn and we aspire to make it even better. There was a lot of fun was had, but normally, because of course many of the folks on this channel work at or are adjacent to the Renaissance Festival circuit, what happens is that the Louisiana Ren Fair is held not only on the weekends, but also on Black Friday. Because it is on Black Friday, which is to say the day after Thanksgiving, Paulo has not been able to come home, that is to say back to his own house for Thanksgiving in over 20 years. Now, again, our children are young adults. That means he has never had Thanksgiving at home with his kids in all these years, because that's the shape our jobs are. So a few years ago when the kids were little, we went out there to spend some time with him, but he still had to work the next day. So it's a very short vacation indeed. And this year, Paulo has called in. I have literally never had Thanksgiving in my house. And so we were able to leave the fair a few weeks early. It was very strange to pack out while other folks were still there. So yeah, here we are. Crazy town. And so for me, coping with Thanksgiving without family, without our family being all together all these years, I had to come up with something to make it more manageable, so it wasn't sort of, not to be melodramatic, but so that it wasn't lonely. We started doing disco Thanksgiving, including having a disco mirror encrusted turkey and other things. But because the folks have voted for an 80s Thanksgiving this year, I don't really know what we're going to do, since I still have a disco turkey. I don't really know. I think I probably showed it to you on the channel before. So since we're home tonight, that means I have time to do a lot of shipping for all of my Etsy orders that came in while we were on the tour. I did a whole round of shipping from the hotel in New Orleans, but I literally couldn't bring enough calendars and ornaments on the trip to keep up. So I'm doing a bunch of shipping tonight, and then tomorrow we will go to the gym, go to the grocery store, and then cook. I hope everyone is celebrating this week however you see fit. If that means ignoring the whole thing and going out to get Chinese food, if that means raging against the pilgrims, I'm supportive of every version of however folks want to spend Thanksgiving. I happen to really like Thanksgiving food. It's some of my favorite American food, to the extent that when Zip Flash, our son, who just, as you may know, had his birthday on the 20th, the year he was born, Thanksgiving was that week. And I was like, my midwife finally induced me, because it was taking a long time. And I was like, well, if I hang on a few more days, I'll be able to eat Thanksgiving at home. And if I go into this hospital, I won't. So I seriously thought about delaying my son's birth so I wouldn't miss Thanksgiving food, if that gives you a sense of how strongly I feel about it. While I question the reason for the season, I do enjoy the cuisine. It's probably my favorite American food. Oh my gosh. So yes, I ordered a chia pet for our son while we were in New Orleans, because we're going to have a party for him now that we're home the day after Thanksgiving. And what are they going to do all day? Play D&D, of course. But I felt bad that we weren't here on his 18th birthday. So as Axio said, did he love his chia pet? So what had happened was somebody on the tour got somebody else a chia pet. And I thought, oh, do those still exist? So I ordered our kid, who wants to be a veterinarian, I ordered him a hedgehog chia pet. And yes, he loves it. He was in the middle of the dining room table. He's got a little fountain that he uses to water it. It was the perfect thing. So thank you for the inspiration. Just some guy says, Black Friday at a Ren Fair. I'm imagining rampaging hordes, actually armed with swords. Well, it's funny because I assume that's why they bother. They were sort of hoping to channel the American Black Friday mercantile rage into big sales. But I think it's actually it's like having a second Sunday that weekend. It's kind of a slow day. It's a good day for the performers if they've got a good base rate, but it tends to not be a huge crowd day. And New Orleans is very sporty. Like, people there are deeply invested in their music, their food, their festivals, and their football. So on a day when there's a game, the fair tends to be slow. So I don't know. It never seemed like a huge day at the fair to me, but over the course of the last 20 years, cumulatively that has put some, money in our pocket or our mortgage or whatever. BLC Blondie says Sky's birthday is Thanksgiving this year. Oh, give Sky our very best. That is fantastic. Hello, everybody. I'm so grateful that you're here. If you turned up hoping to see Danger Daddy on our usual programming, instead you find yourself with me, your tarot reader, this evening. We're just going to do a little catch up. Again, I am just fresh off the road just a few hours ago, and fried beyond compare in the sense of having done I keep saying, well, it was a long week. Well, it was a long month. Well, honestly, it was a long year. We've done a lot this year. And I keep saying, well, it'll slow down in we're definitely trying to make sure that next year is just as full of fun and connecting with you all and going places and doing things, but maybe having to do less things because I'm a little fried. I was actually shaking on Saturday night, even though I was happy to be there with everybody, but I was like so fatigued and so under caloried. I was reminded how much I need to invest in my self-care if I want to be helping to provide good times to other people. Gotta make sure you get your own oxygen mask on the plane, as they say. So some of the folks in the stream today were actually there in New Orleans. I hope you will just chime in if you have any favorite moments that you want to mention at the moment. I did get to do some tarot card reading for folks this year. Last year, I was able to do it in game as part of progressing the plot or the narrative, as it were, giving the players some information they needed. I had a different role in the storyline this year, so I actually just read cards for people as myself, essentially, partway through, and that was very enjoyable. Not every tarot reading is going to feel like a home run if we're going to indulge in some sports metaphor, but I always feel really good about when the information that the cards put up seems to really resonate with people. As you may know, if you've ever had a reading with me, I don't ask what they're about. I am happy to just ask the querent, the person with the question, to think about what what their question is, and I will work with the cards to try to determine, what information I can offer. If I ever sit down with you one-on-one sometime and we do like a full hour, we will get into the nitty-gritty. But in general, especially in a party setting like there in New Orleans, I feel like it's more about a sort of a glancing snapshot of your life to catch a telling moment or telling vibe. We definitely had some of those. We definitely had some, I think, powerful readings. Did Thecla get to be a packed patron for the one character? Yes, Thecla surely did. Fans of the channel or longtime friends will know that I often play Thecla the Minotaur mummy lady. And yes, indeed, one of the players found themselves in a position using a mechanism of the cards that was cleverly devised by one of our DMs. My tarot cards fulfilled the part of a deck of many things, and players could opt to pull one of those cards. I, as well as them, didn't know what they were going to get, and each card had boons or detriments associated with them that the players could then carry into the 16 hours of gameplay. So really great. That was a new mechanism that we explored on this go around, and I think it's a keeper. So as part of that, folks who pulled a certain card found themselves with a benefit to their character, but they had a pact and they needed a patron in order to make that happen. And one of our participants opted to make Thecla their patron. Very powerful, runs a school for warlocks and witches and so forth. If you've ever seen our hilarious, ridiculous commercial for Thecla's school. In order to film that, we had to actually set up a whole stage set in our house, which we had for about a week, which is giant thrones and feathers, and it was absolutely ridiculous COVID type of action. But yes, so Thecla now actually has an official acolyte in the lore of the game, in addition to, just in the city of Magecroft on Urt. So that's fun. I'm a patron, I guess not a patron saint, but a patroness, patron demon. So I don't know what you would call that, but yes, I get to be somebody's sort of ruling divinity. Seems to be overstating it, but yes, source of power, whatever we call that. You'd think I would know, but sometimes I get the real magic stuff mixed up with the D&D magic stuff. Oh, Sky still has maps from Thecla's mausoleum. If having just been in New Orleans, if any of you are Tom Waits fans, also he has a very deep, gravelly voice, deeper even than mine in my post-New Orleans jazzy thing. And he actually has a song, "In the mausoleum tonight." So every time I hear mausoleum, I actually hear a very New Orleans voice in Tom Waits. Hilarious. So yeah, how about that? Axio says, I think one of my favorite off-time moments with Saturday nights, late night adventure with the random chatter. Yes. So on Saturday night, of course, the tour was over at that point. We did the game and all of the designated activities through the week. Then I had the opportunity. As I said, I was just shaking, starving, and so finally I was like, I have to go out and get a real meal and sit down. And I had the pleasure of sitting down at the table with some of our players and having actually the strongest single cocktail of my entire life. Good thing I only got the one. Went back to the hotel, took a little time to regroup, and I wanted to go down to see the river, which I had not actually gotten to see on this particular trip as we had been busy. And if you're in the French Quarter, there's a very convenient access to see the Mississippi and all of her lights over there by Café du Monde. So a couple of us walked down there, and it was definitely Nat 21 after hours because Danger Daddy had also had a very strong cocktail, and it was kind of like truth or dare for DMs. So that was funny and fun. Hope you enjoyed it, those of you that were there. And don't tell anybody whatever you learned. I will say on this trip, this has nothing to do with tarot. On this trip, I have lived a life that is I know you're wondering how this sentence ends. I grew up in a world with a certain amount of addiction and like alcoholism. Where I grew up, there's a lot of heroin and all that sort of thing. My family's been very affected by that. I'm actually named after an aunt of mine who was heroin overdosing at the time that I was born. Like that sort of thing has left an imprint on my life as a child. And I have designed our life to never overlap with that. Like my kids have not been exposed to that sort of thing in the way that I was. What happens in NOLA stays in NOLA. Yes, thank you. Bungalow glow. Exactly. So I've designed our lives to be not like that. So I have actually literally, I've never seen heroin. I've never seen cocaine. Like I'll make jokes about it. Like for 80s Thanksgiving with our disco turkey, I was joking. I was just surrounded with piles of cornstarch and pretend it was the 80s, But literally, like my life has had very little exposure to that sort of thing on purpose because I have moved away at every turn. Anytime I can move away from my sort of familial heritage that way, I do. So that being said, I've never had so many people talk to me about drugs as on this trip. Not you guys, but just like random servers, the chef in one place, my server in a hotel at breakfast another day, like at the Ren Fair, which also has never happened, standing in line to use the porta potties. Like I was so shocked. I actually walked away and got in a different line. So it was very funny, like, in general, we actually try to live a pretty wholesome life for a given value of whatever this is. So I don't know. I think everybody in the world is just trying to cope however they can with what's afoot. So I appreciate those of you who have turned to tarot and D&D and rather than, or perhaps vices. Instructional. Oh, Sally says the meal was good. Your reaction to the drink was priceless. Yeah, I guess I'm just a deep date. Oh yeah, Sir David Percival wanted to come with us too. Yes, we would have loved to have seen you guys, but we can all only do so much. You've got to pace yourself relative to your obligations. So that being said, I'm happy to keep chatting about the trip. If anybody has any queries or questions or insights, but also I thought we might do some cards. And in the month of December, I thought we would probably instead, when we jump to our next one, we will work with Oracle decks because, of course, in addition to my tarot deck, I have a Yuletide Monsters Oracle deck. All Oracle decks are different by design because they reflect the intuitions and inclinations of their makers. All tarot decks, to a lesser extent, do, because of course you will see different things represented in all the art, and yet all tarot decks by design are part of a single tradition that we talk about a lot on this channel and goes back in time, all the way back to at least the 1500s, if not more. Forgive me if I'm wiggly in my chair. I've literally been sitting in a car for 2 days. So I'm really, what I need is some exercise. which actually Danger Daddy has been downstairs using virtual reality to punch and shoot arrows and fight dragons and things since we got back, since he hasn't gotten to the gym yet. Sally, on the other hand, did 25 miles of walking this week. Holy Hannah. Were you guys, and you guys weren't even in the hotel in the back. We had to go that additional bit to the haunted building in the back and up to the 5th floor or whatever. So let's talk about tarot cards. In fact, let me get my little deck out here. I'm going to work with my own deck today. Although I still do have here, I do have the Gummy Bear Tarot here, and I've got that cute little cat tarot. Zalani says, ooh, what game? What game? What game? What game? Did I say something about a game? Were we talking about a tarot thing, or were we talking about something else? What did I miss? I'm a little daffy. All right. My deck seems so enormous. I've just pulled it out of the box. I'm actually wondering if this is 2 tarot decks pushed together. If you can see, it seems a little thicker than usual. Oh, the VR. Oh, thank you. Yes. Something punchy and something shooty. He calls it shooty. I can tell he's in there because he's doing this. I think he's fighting dragons and stuff. He definitely gets some sweat. He does it for cardio. And then punching, he's got 2 different, he calls them shooty and punchy. I don't know what they're called. I will say one of the, you guys like this sort of mushy detail, one of the great fulfilling moments of my life in the last 5 years was when our older son, Dr. Freaky, graduated high school, which was a long fight for him due to his chronic health conditions. My little brother came from my hometown. He's giant. I don't know, he's like 6'2" or something, but he's younger than me. Came all the way down from my hometown for the first time ever to our house and was here. And he also is like a Dungeons and Dragons nerd. And so the 2 of them, my love of my life and my little brother, were in their VR masks, like as a squad. Watch your back, bro. It was like, I actually filmed it. I wish I could have seen what they were seeing. It was so adorable. It filled my little heart with joy to see these 2, someone who knew me better than anybody for the first half of my life, and somebody who knows me better than anybody for the second half of my life. And there they found common cause in shooty and punchy. So, oh wow, and Sir David Purcell got his 34 miles in. So in a traditional deck, as you may know, and if you're just joining us now, hi, I'm Madame Onça. I know this is not your typical D&D, or live streamy game type thing. I do a once a month tarot show on our channel, and it's usually on Thursdays, but because of Thanksgiving, it is today. Again, a deck normally has 78 cards. However, I was just at the Baltimore Fairy Festival last weekend at the Fairy Scary Ball in Baltimore. If you like Ren fairs and you like the whimsical part, I do recommend leaning into your fairy festival. They tend to be much less alcohol forward, even though that festival and series of festivals, for example, has the Royal Rabbit Vineyard sponsors them. So there's always like a big wine vending sort of area, but they tend to be, very live music. And there's a lot, it's kind of like court. There's a lot of the court part that from fair and whimsy, a lot of great vendors. I don't know if it's the sort of thing you'd like, you'd love it. It's like, it's all time traveler day or all fairy day at the fair. Sometimes they're indoors, sometimes they're outdoors. This one was indoors in a hotel. It's sort of growing into a fairy con called Fairy Scary. And I taught a tarot class. One of the really great guy in the community brought his deck, which is called the Alleyman's Tarot. If you like tarot, you might look it up. It's kind of an interesting thing. All of the cards, there's cards from different decks. It's as if they bought 1,000 copies of 1,000 decks and mixed them all up. And then people get together and trade the cards because they really like this one person's art. So it is a very eclectic approach to building a deck as compared to, 78 cards by one person. You've got 78 cards by however many. And then there are sometimes other wacky cards. So this guy was sitting across from me, and his deck was about this tall. It's like, how many cards are in that deck, man? And he was like, 120 without any repeats. So he had so many other like eclectic cards from eclectic decks, gigantic tarot deck. So it's like, well, this class is going to start with being curious about how you even shuffle that, my friend. There is no right or wrong way to do this, but I'm very curious how you cope. So we were able to use that as a launching off point to talk about how many cards are normally in a deck and what you do if your deck has 120 cards. And as we've touched on in the past, in ancient tarot history, the convention of having 78 cards that we have now is pretty new, right? I mean, this has really only become absolutely standardized in the last, century or two. Before that, different cultures, there's no internet, people are doing what they want, they expand on what their teacher taught them. So there have been gigantic decks before. I just hadn't laid my eyes on one, except for maybe today, because again, I'm fairly sure that this is actually a deck and a half of mine mushed together in this one box. BLC Blondie says we can call it Tarot Tuesday. Yes, and you can probably call it tiddly-minded on my part too, because I'm definitely, I'm delighted to be here, but a little wacky. Good thing is all the cats, all the chickens, all the kids survived while we were gone. In fact, we have an extra cat now because we picked up a foster cat that the kids are helping while we were gone, named Ripley. She's very shy. If anybody needs an adorable, shy calico cat, she's very sweet. She's still living in terror, hiding underneath Dr. Freaky's leather working desk. But if you can get your hands on her, she will purr until she drools, and she will come out for a churu, which is one of those like little, it's almost like a yogurt tube full of tuna fish. She will come out for that. She's very affectionate. She's just scared to death because her life's been real hard. So the kids picked her up for us to try to help. Yes, the best people are always a little wacky, especially after a wacky week. So here we are, cards in hand. I think I would like to ask you, as a gang out there, I know there's about 10 of you watching right now. As always, the question is, are we doing readings? Are we answering questions about things like, best practices, ethics for reading cards, storing cards, all that kind of thing? Or am I just straight up walking you through the meanings of a bunch of cards? Like today, I could certainly go through, you see, we're heading into the season of winter, so that's probably a good time for swords. I could walk you through Ace through 10 of swords, for example. There is no, I'll start pulling those out just in case. There's no wrong answer about how to use this time, but I generally do come into it being unformatted because I have found there is no accounting for how many people or which people are going to be able to make it. So I try to keep an open mind when I get here. For the moment, I'm pulling out my swords just in case that's the vote. But I can also pull cards for you guys if you want. I could probably pull 3 cards a piece for a handful of you in the amount of time. You just have to know everybody else can see. So we'll try to keep the content discreet. You can mull that over while I shuffle all my cards. We don't need those guys for now. So many swords cards. Boop, boop, boop. There's another sword card I like. We spent a long time in the car discussing the trip, about the things that went well, the things we can improve, the things that would need to change. We had so many folks came back from the previous year. Probably 75% of the people on this tour had been there the last year. And so we want to keep the scenarios fresh. We want to keep the activities fresh. And so trying to make sure that everybody, gets a chance to sort of get a feel for New Orleans and a feel for the DM style, et cetera, et cetera. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm missing the ace. Well, here's a question from Sally. When going for a reading, what is the best way to formulate or ask your question? This is actually, perhaps, Sally's got right into it. This is probably the best question that you can ask about tarot. I don't like to say that when people are sitting down for a reading because it feels that it amplifies the pressure on the person who usually just got the courage to sit down, and now they're like, oh no, I already feel inadequate because I don't know how to ask a good question. So I usually try to, put them at ease and make them feel relaxed. However, this question of what kind of question to ask is big. Various readers and teachers will give you various answers, but one thing I think that we can all agree on, and BLC Blondie likewise says, I'm never sure about what to ask or what I want to ask. A few things to consider. If you're a note-taking person, you probably can hear these cards shuffling. Hope I'm louder than the cards. If you're a note-taking person, please make a note of what I'm about to say, because it will be useful and is more likely to stick in your mind if you write it down. A few points to consider. Do you have a multiple choice question? In other words, is this a, should I move to Idaho or Iowa? Is this a multiple choice question? Should I date Susie or Joey? Is this a multiple choice question? Should I, like a totally different varieties? What does my life look like if I leave my job and join the ministry? If I start an orphanage? If I don't know, become a velociraptor? Like, ask yourself, first of all, if it's a multiple choice. If it is a multiple choice scenario and you have very little time, then you want to articulate this question for yourself very clearly. What if I pursue option A, option B, option C, and even is there a wild card option? Yes, what I actually want is the life that Godzilla wanted me to have, which is similar to this one, but has a lot more like lasers and trips to the bottom of the sea. So the first thing is there a way to phrase it in terms of multiple choice? This job or that job, this roommate or that roommate, this mortgage interest rate or that mortgage interest rate, whatever. Some questions can be quantified that way, in which case you, as you're pulling your cards, according to whatever methodology your reader uses, you need to you want to be positional in the sense that you're thinking, I am now pulling the card for my Idaho option. I'm now pulling the card for my velociraptor option. Don't lay the cards out and then try to guess which is which, because then you will inevitably conform to reader's bias. You want to actually say in advance, I know this is do I go on the Destination D&D tour to New Orleans, or do I go on the one to England, or wild card, I go on both? You pick and lay the cards out accordingly. Now, if it is a multiple choice, you can also lay one card out for each. And then if you have time and additional questions, sometimes it's real clear, like great option, terrible option. If it's more ambiguous, like these all look pretty good, or these all look kind of fraught. If you've got the time, you can then say, let's imagine this is my Velociraptor card. You can say, okay, tell me more about this option. And going through the same reading process as before, just lay another even 3 cards down with that. So it's almost like a fan. Here is the option you picked, and then here's the cards you pull for that. Likewise, if you've got time, I get that card, I don't understand this card, you can say, all right, give me more information on that. Pull some more. So you can end up with this very sort of organic spreading tree of information that starts out from that core question of, what about my options? So they will fan out. You want to lay your cards out in such a way that if you've got time, that you also have room to let the answers unfold and to really sit with them. If you don't know your cards well, you can't just, summon their sort of qualities to mind all in one go. You definitely want to write it down, journal it, all that sort of thing, because in writing it down or even talking it out, if you're not a writer, but you're a talker, even talking it out to yourself, you will probably start to put together the story the cards are trying to share with you. How do they share that with you? Some people think it's guardian angels or magic or quantum physics or whatever. I tend to just think that we are smarter than we admit, and the tools give us a way to listen to the deep and more deeply intuitive and well-informed part of our brain, which can help us cut through some of the sort of cultural conditioning that keeps us from hearing ourselves. Now, so there's your multiple choice option. But if it's not that kind of a thing, the next question is, what is the time frame on your question? I know I touched on this with some of the folks I read for when we were down in New Orleans, certainly in Baltimore. And when Paula and I did that gig for the animals a couple weeks ago, Likewise, a lot of time frames. So if you don't know what else to ask, you sit down, you're like, now that I got here, I don't know. You can say, well, what do I need to know in the next 6 months? What do I need to know in the next month? What should I be attuned to this week? What should be my goal or trajectory in my field for the next year? So you can set a time frame. It can be a day if you want to try to be real precise, but in general, tarot language is like dream language. You kind of have to leave room for experience to be narrative or metaphorical. The tarot's not going to show up with an exact bill for you with the exact math, right? It's more like, it's going to feel like this. It's going to look like this. So pick a time frame. And if it's more specific, you can say things like, what do I need to know in my job in this next year? What do I need to know about my relationship in the next, what do I want? What are things I need to consider relative to my fertility in the next 5 years? Like you can pick a field of interest, a field of inquiry, and a time frame and try to mesh those. Again, the tarot is never very extremely precise. If you are working with a reader who can say such and such a thing is going to happen next Tuesday, either they don't really know, or I had a teacher who was that kind of person and legitimately, charmingly and eerily was precise, but she was what I would say is like an actual psychic. Like the information she was getting wasn't just from the cards, because I was looking at the same cards. I don't see time markers of that kind of precision in there. She had like some extra sensory aptitude. So if you find a person who has that, super. But most of the time, if anybody tries to be super exact and give you lottery numbers or whatever, that's probably some BS. So proceed with a healthy degree of skepticism, let's say. Now, so there we have talking about multiple choice. There we have talking about time fields, right? Or like time spans. Now, the next question I want you to bring back for relative here to Sally and VLC's question. The next thing is the ethics. I'm sure we've touched on this in this channel before. Hello, if you're just joining us, I am Madame Onça. I am your tarot reader. I'm the artist and author behind the World Spirit Tarot and the Yuletide Monsters Oracle, and I am a longtime fan, and participant in this channel. I do logistics on D&D tours and do the part of interactive NPCs and so forth, but I do a lot of the background stuff, and I am on this channel at least once a month doing tarot stuff for our folks. So I just can see the numbers rise and fall, and I want to make sure anybody who just got here knows what's happening. I also am antsy in my chair because I just got out of an 1,100-mile drive before I got here. So the other thing to think about, timeframes, to think about multiple choice. The next thing is ethics, and the ethics refer to it. There's no one answer, but you need to consider, are you asking things about yourself and your path or other people? And what is the line? Like maybe as part of your path and trying to work on your career or relationships or family or personal trajectory, there are times when it might be appropriate to be like, hey, cards, I'd like some insight into, why my boss is being like this, or how my colleagues feel about me, or how my kid, is going to respond to such and such a situation. There is a point where that is ethical, because you and they, right? Ultimately, we are all one in the sense that if you get near people, your atoms merge. I mean, we're all part of this sort of emotional ecosystem. However, there is a point where you are being prying and invasive, and you will have to figure that out, or your tarot reader will do it for you. Because it's one thing to say, is this person interested in me? No. Why not? Who are they interested? What are they into? Like, why? What do they have a problem? What's their story? What's their trauma? Hopefully you can sense that there's a point there where it becomes less about what is healthy for you and more about what is intrusive on your part. So the ethics of how you read about other people is a thing to consider. I have my own sort of formed codes about that, but each reader will arrive at their own ethics, and you need to do the same. And I will say, for like, we are we on this channel, we in the Ren Fair performance community and extended community, we are like the smallest of celebrities, right? Like you see me, or you see maybe a dozen or 2 dozen, or however many folks on this channel, however many dozens of folks in the national scene, but we see thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. You guys are people to me because we interact on the regular, both in person and online, and at fairs when we can and so forth. But there are certainly people who would love to pry into our lives beyond what might be comfortable for us, because there's a distinction between the public and the private, right? And so if you think about sort of your relationship with other people through the cards, the way that we try to very carefully handle that distinction between being authentically friendly, being authentically friends, or having more of a hopefully healthy parasocial relationship through social media and things like this, interactive media, right? Nobody knows exactly where those lines lie. And we all try to do our best, hopefully, to be cool and be helpful and be engaging and not invasive and not intrusive and not freaky. I'm very happy to say that in the context of this channel, my interactions have been very healthy that way. I feel like you guys are a mentally healthy lot when it comes to that sort of thing, which makes us more inclined to share and be open with you. So thank you. It's kind of a win-win. But hopefully you can look at that and think of that as a parallel for how you use the tarot. It's like if you could flick on a video camera into someone else's home or psyche at any time, would you? Or would that feel weird? So think about the tarot in that context and just ask yourself what feels fair. Now, I'd love to hear from y'all about how you feel about that. That is a little bit sensitive subject. If you've had good or bad experiences with that sort of thing, I'd certainly love to see it in the comments so we can explore that relative to the question. Now, because it is my belief that our destinies are not pre-written, we are not Calvinists. It is not all. Our books are not already, our lives are not already pre-written in the book of life. We come to the tarot not because you want to peer into the future, like between the leaves at the script of your life, but rather because you would like to see the predicting spreadsheets of your life. You want to look at the charts and go, I don't like that math. I'm going to change the market conditions of my life by confronting my own programming or changing my behavior, modifying my diet, or whatever other kinds of change you might be empowered to make. It's important to note that the tarot cards can tell you what you are likely to do or what you are likely to experience based on who you are and what your baggage is. Sort of what your opportunities have been in life, what your privileges, what your damages, what your social factors, all that kind of stuff. Because the cards are, if you think of them as your mind or your psyche reflecting out to where you can look at it, what you're like. They're reflecting your nature back where you can see it. If you don't like that, you can change it. If the cards keep coming up again with like addiction, obsession, all that kind of stuff, life out of balance, you do have the possibility of saying, I don't like that. Maybe I should, I don't know, give up gluten or join AA or whatever it is that might allow you to make an effective pivot in your life to try to change those results. I mention this because if you say, hey, tarot cards, how's my situation X likely to unfold with persons A, B, and C in the next month or 2 months or 6 months or year, that is likely to be more accurate for you than saying, how is my life going to end? What will my life be like in 15 years from now, and so forth? In other words, as the sort of these possibilities are fractal, and because we believe that you have free will, as things keep folding out, there becomes a wider and wider divergence and possibility of what could happen. Hope that makes sense to you. To use the perhaps a sloppy metaphor of D&D, it's like you can have the module, you can have that text, you can have your character sheet, but the choices that you and your fellow players make along with your DM along the way are going to actually shape the story. Otherwise, you just have the sort of conditions of the game, right? You can't guess exactly how this game is going to end, even if the DM railroads you through the sort of plot points and so forth. you still have some leeway in there to decide how your life goes in the finer points and in the larger points. And therefore, the tarot is more accurate the closer to where you are in time. So I hope that makes sense. Ooh, the chat went very quiet in the last 10 minutes. So even though you're still all here, so I hope I didn't intimidate you or in contrast, bore you. But if you ask a theoretical question, get a theoretical answer. So maybe while you mull that over, a focused attention. Thank you, Axio. Or maybe your hands are just full because you're also listening to this while you're washing the dishes or something. That's totally fair. Note taking and processing. So I have a hard time imagining that a person could commit a lot of time and effort to learning something like the tarot, or those of you that worked with Zoran on the tour on runes, which is a whole other sort of way to have the universe reflect back information at you. I don't know how you could work with those things and not end up being a bit of a philosopher when it comes to how we treat each other, how we engage with the ethics of our interactions at our best and worst, how we, like, where our social responsibilities begin and end to each other and to ourselves, right? The more time that you spend as Captain Janeway, or the actor who plays her, would say, the considered life, I believe she called it. If you take the time to self-reflect, not in a self-obsessive way, but in a sort of analytical way, to understand your life as a plot that is unfolding, it's hard to imagine that it couldn't make a bit of a philosopher out of you, and might perhaps be a bit of a cure for just feeling like we are powerlessly being buffeted in the winds of history and trauma, which is far less of an empowering way to go through our lives, no matter what kind of upbringing you had. So, any other questions as you are note taking and processing? Because otherwise we could just jump in and start talking about swords, since we're in the realm of decisions. I just want to make sure I have any of them accounted for. I definitely have. Is it these ones? I definitely had pulled out my swords. Was bitte ein Minuten. I don't want to do the people cards of swords right now. That feels like the wrong kind of work. I thought we might do swords because while the concept seasons aren't real, nature changing its expression over the arc of time in a somewhat predictable manner is real. But of course, depending where you live in the world, you're going to have a very different experience of, sorry, I've got itchy nose ringitis. You're going to have a very different experience of the seasons. And of course, for folks living on the other side of the world right now, they're coming into the hot and sweaty months, as we are beginning to confront the looming specter of snow. So why do I mention seasons? Oh, look, I found lots of people cards. Because in the West, we have made a convenient correspondence in the tarot between the four main suits and the four Western traditional elements, sort of almost the humors, as it were. So you've got wands are fire, passion. You've got cups are water and emotion. You've got swords are powers of the intellect and air, and pentacles or coins or stones, as they're sometimes called, is the element of earth. And that is all of your material stuff. Hello, Zorkenfrud. Welcome aboard. Better late than never. You've missed a lot of very interesting conversation, I've got to say, but I'm glad you're here now. We talked a bit about the D&D tour that we just came back from, and also whether our fates are predetermined. If not, how do we read the cards? Where are all my swords? Boop-a-doo, that's wands, pentacles. So when it comes to the seasons, some folks, therefore, make the analogy. Let's see if I can pull this out of the top of my head. So pentacles are often associated with harvest, which is going to be autumn, I want to say. Winter with swords, because of being sort of all about air, cold, windy, wide open. Water is spring, which is getting things going, and fire, which is wands. Hello, darling. It was so damn fun. Oh my gosh. So I thought we might jump into swords because we are headed into winter. There's my 2. So if you've got swords cards, go ahead and pull them out and we'll just take a minute. I've got 3 of swords. I've got Ace of Swords. We don't need the people cards. We just need the first 10. There's 4. There's 10. There's 8. There's 9. 6. Where's my 2? I think that's all of them. Let's find out. So if you've got swords, let's go through our swords. And then if you have questions about swords, we'll talk about those. And then we will probably dip at that point because it will have been an hour and a half. And I still have to unpack the car. So let's start with, if you've got an ace, get a gander at your ace. Once again, the swords cards, the swords. Now, this will vary if you are like a heathen, a Satru type of person. Some folks that are on that sort of more Nordic path, they seem to actually have different attributions of the elements and so forth. I'm not an expert in that path, so I will not speak to it, but I know that like their wands and swords and stuff, some of their attributions are slightly different. So if that is your heritage, you may, or your inclination, you may want to look into that. You could probably look up tarot attributions, Nordic paganism or something like that. I'm sure there's some search item that will get you there. But for the moment, we are looking for our ace, our 2. There it is. Boop. There is a comic rule of thumb in tarot that whatever card you're looking for will be 78 cards from now. In other words, you'll have to go through the whole deck to find it. Ace, 2, 5, 6. Dove, il mio 3. Okay. The question I used to ask myself about the suit of swords was, why are the swords cards overall the most fraught and stressful cards? It's probably partly why I tend to want to associate them with winter, because I am a sweet summer child, and I associate the winter with being hungry and poor and cold and uncomfortable. I realize that not everyone has those associations, but they were true for me for many years. So for me, this is for some folks, this is the fun skiing season where you get to wear boots. But for me, it does tend to be a time of, I just dropped a card, I have memories of the threat of privation from this time of year. But why do the cards themselves tend to tell not a totally stark story, but there tends to be some difficult cards? I don't know. Ask somebody smarter than me. Probably Mary Greer or Rachel Pollack, some of the best authors on the subject of tarot ever. My theory, such as it is that one of the spiritual poisons of the West, of the tradition that we have inherited, is the notion that humans are better than other animals because we're smart, because we have language and tools, because we have complex thinking, because we build machines and so forth. And that something about this notion of the intellect elevated above all else, it might make us feel special, because we certainly have left an impact on the earth and on each other. We've done some amazing things in the meanwhile. However, if you elevate the intellect above all else, you find yourself in the position of saying, I built it because I could. I built this bomb because I could. Not whether you should, or whether there's any spiritual or moral considerations for any other person or living things or sentient things or spiritual things, but that notion that the powers of the intellect can and should be followed to the utmost, no matter the consequence. I truly believe in my heart that that is part of why we find ourselves not only with a lot of problems on the earth logistically, toxic waste and other things, but also that we have an epidemic of loneliness. We've built all these tools that allow us to have more information faster, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes perhaps at the cost of connection, right? I mean, there's literally an epidemic of loneliness that is killing people. And that is not because we feel too strongly. It's because as a species, our culture opted to elevate one set of powers over all of our other powers, when we are in fact smart as well as a bunch of other things. We are smart. We are deep feelers. We have bodies and senses that should be honored in balance. I really believe that the reason the swords cards suck, as you're about to see overall, is because the cards depict the consequences of elevating them above all else. And if you are skeptical about this theory, go through the cards with me. Also, you should know that in the earlier this century, the super fucking racist ideation that got attached to the tarot is that swords, the card of smarts, was for Aryan people. Blue-eyed, blonde, smart Western civilization people were associated with this suit. And the pentacles, the earth was associated with brown people, people who are close to the earth, noble savages. Like, it's appalling now if we say that out loud. I hope that you are recoiling at home. But some of our, not all, but some of our ancestors in the spiritual traditions thought that seemed like a perfectly reasonable explanation, theory for the races on earth. And so all of that racist, classist garbage got dumped into the tarot. And I think the art for the swords, again, not all of it is terrible, but you'll see there's a lot of pain looped up in these cards. So I think hopefully, should humans continue to exist for several hundred years, our descendants, hopefully these cards will be a lot more chill because they will come to reflect a more balanced relationship with the elements. In other words, that people will learn to engage in more self-care and not endless exploitation. We'll learn to consider how we feel and what we intuit and not just elevate one kind of intelligence over all other kinds, etc. That is my hope. That being said, let's dive into these charming swords. Again, some of them are nice, and they're certainly all useful. So, don't go taking them out of your deck or anything. But please know that they have inherited a lot of baggage, and I did not put that baggage there. I was just as shocked as you are. Let's start with the Ace of Swords. Aces are innocent. The Ace cards are the seed. You find the seed. Here it is sitting in your hand. It is the raw potential of the suit. When you get your Ace of Swords, whatever it is, everything about the art generally speaks to the notions of wind, movement, intellect, decision-making, boundaries. It is you are standing in a doorway in your life, and there is a new option in front of you for you to make a move, literally step through the doorway. You've got a great idea. Are you going to bring it into the world? Maybe you've got a terrible idea. Maybe you're going to bring that into the world. But this is about using what you've got in the sort of intellectual department. I also find more and more, like they used to say, it was just brains. It was just like thoughts and intellect. I tend to find more and more this is also about words and how we use words and establish our boundaries. That's really important. So when the Ace comes up, it's a great card, but it means something cool is in the offing, and it's a question of whether you are going to make the choices to, if that's a seed, are you going to water it, you're going to fertilize it, you're going to photosynthesize it, you're going to give it a chance to grow into a thing, or is that's just that like great idea that you have in the back of your mind, or this raw potential you have to really know and speak your truth. Are you going to actually do that? Are you going to step out and develop those skills? This card would like to know. First card, not so bad. Two of Swords, likewise. This traditionally is a representation of a figure, usually with their eyes, blindfolded, holding some crossed swords, sitting usually in the moonlight. And this is the way I chose to represent that card. You still see a blindfolded figure. There's a sense of suspension, like literally suspense. There is action, but there is stasis. The Two of Swords is the card that comes up when you should not leap headlong into making a decision. It is saying you have developed the capacity for intellect, for communication, for boundaries, to explore the space, to do the due diligence and learn things. Learn before you act. Otherwise, you will fall into this precipice. Also, this card suggests if you sit forever, you see this person in the horse stance, martial arts wise, over this chasm. If you never move, eventually you will falter and you will collapse and also fall into the ditch. So this card says, take your time. You're smart. Act smart. Get well informed. Figure things out. And then take action. in this particular art, there's a little bunny in the corner. I'll show you. This little bunny in the corner is like, what is it with humans making their lives so hard? Well, this great gift of intellect they have sure seems to torture them. So there's our two. Hello. Hey, Hesper, NOLA 2025. Let's go. We are excited to hear your feedback about what didn't work well for you. Be gentle right now because we're exhausted. But in the long run, we want all of the information. And we're already full of ideas after a 16-hour drive. We did a lot of talking and planning and looking at schedules and looking at itineraries and trying to figure out how to meet everybody's needs to keep it fresh and exciting and also, fun for everyone, rewarding for everyone, and so forth. So, woohoo! Hey, there's Nina Lee too. Geez, everybody's rolling up at 9. Hey, gang. So we're working our way through the swords. We have covered a little bit of a debrief about the trip. We have covered a little bit about who the hell I am and what I'm doing here for anybody who's just rolled up and doesn't know that we randomly have a tarot show on here. Talked a little bit about what we got to do for tarot in New Orleans this year, which was a little different, and that was fun. And then a little bit of existential philosophy. And now we are going through the swords cards, which are kind of difficult cards. So good information to have. We went through the nice card, the interesting card, and now we're coming up on the first of our very difficult cards, the 3. This card is most typically represented in this century by a heart in the rain run through with swords. Hilarious. Apparently, there's actually the family crest of one of my old magic teachers, too, so that was very funny. The 3 of Swords. 3s, when they come up in the tarot, the number usually means you've gone from the idea of the thing, you've gone into a little bit of exploration of the thing, and now you are yielding the first results of your efforts, shall we say. So it's like the first bloom. Axio, it's like the first blush of green on your chia pet, as it were. In the swords, because the swords cards tend to describe difficulty in communicating, asserting boundaries, and using our big brains for good, this card usually comes up when we find ourselves unexpectedly hurt and or betrayed. So in this card, you can see that there's a figure sort of lurking in the mirror. There's the ominous sigils staked to the wall and the person who is face palming in distress. Now, there is some sort of a lit door at the end of the hallway. Perhaps they just came from there and they feel locked in, or perhaps that is an exit they could get out once they are done feeling bad about how bad they feel. But this card usually comes up when you're like, oh, ouch, that hurts. So it is not a sign of doom, but it is a suggestion that you're going to have a serious pothole in the road. Swords being intellect and communication. It can come up relative to work. It can come up relative to art. It can come up relative to relationships. But just remember, it tends to be, however it feels, it's worth looking at what role communication and boundaries had to play. Now, I'm going to take a moment to jump in. Yes, look out. It's the wandering Nina Lee. If you approach gently with chocolate and a sweet smile. I'm still looking for your ears, by the way. I definitely pulled them out to bring them with me to the fair that day, but we have only been home a couple hours. And so the first load of laundry is in, but in no way am I fully unpacked. So I'm still looking for your ears, Nina Lee. Now, let's see if we can get through these other cards before I run out of voice. 4 of Swords. 4 is a gentle reprieve from the ass kicking that the 3 gave you. The 4 is typically a scene of a person in repose. Sometimes it even looks like a statue. If you are familiar with the vigil of the night, of knighthood, like the night before when you stay up all night at the chapel, generally sort of praying for guidance and trying to get it together, this card always reminds me of that. In this image, we see there in the church, it's basically about needing to take a minute for some rest and healing. This figure is wearing green in this case, which the Egyptians is the color they used to represent regeneration and rebirth for obvious reasons, because they were on the most incredibly fertile river in the world there with the Nile popping up. And that also, you can see they have their crutch they probably hobbled over there and needed to lay down and are hoping for some recovery time. There in the distance, you can vaguely see there's a horse or maybe one of our mules from New Orleans in the distance that brought them there and is waiting to take them away once they have had a moment to rest and recover. So this card, 4s are stable numbers. And when the 4s come up in the tarot, it generally means you got through whatever it is. You're not done, but there is a plateau. Sometimes that is welcome. In this case, where the 3 was rough, the 2 was work and the 3 was rough, and the 4 is a chance to rest and recover. Literally, when it comes to making decisions, this can be sleep on it before you make any big jump. And for anybody dealing with chronic illness, of course, this is a card that says it is okay to need to rest and recharge your spoons. For anybody else, it's like maybe take a pause before you do any fast motion options. Hello, Cluckin' Awesome. Nice to see you too. So this is a good card. If I could afford anything in my billionaire villa someday, it's to have those stained glass windows put in. That would mean everything to me. Just like that. I love them. Okay, now we come to the 5. The 5s are always difficult cards in the tarot, irrespective of whether it's swords or anything else. My teacher used to say 5 are the numbers. It's the number of chaos. Whatever wisdom you have hard fought from your ace to the 4, you kind of got things sorted out. You chased away the ants. You got the picnic table set up. And then on the 5, it turns out fire ants weren't the real problem. The geyser blows up and flips over your table. When the 5s just mean that you didn't have all of the information. So this card is typically associated with conflict. Again, this is about ideas, boundaries, words, could be intellectual property, could be anything like that. But usually the question this card asks is, which are you? The guy in the back gloating or the guy in the habit of getting his ass kicked? Because you see there's broken swords all over the ground. Somebody seems to have a bit of tennis elbow. Very relatable. So when this card comes up, 5s just always speak to some conflict. Now, conflict isn't always bad. I mean, as we know, competition can bring out the best in us. I mean, some of you come to this channel because you enjoy things like D&D and so forth, gaming, which is literally another form of ritualized conflict, right? It is conflict wrapped up in a compelling and or hilarious story. So conflict's not intrinsically bad, gives you a chance to grow. But again, who are you? Are you the brute, or are you the person who just keeps showing up to get their ass kicked? And in both cases, why? Now 6 is a very nice sword card, but it is deep. This card is traditionally known as a journey by water. In the old days, now we also call it the journey of consciousness. There's a person in a boat. In the crypto-Mediterranean way, their boat has the eye painted upon it so that even if they are completely lost in the fog, the boat may find its way home. You can see their friends and family or whoever have turned out to help them load up their boat in the dark of night. There is a seagull up there as a representative of the natural world looking on. This card comes up when your intellect has taken you so far. You've survived some things, you've learned some things, you've communicated some things, and it is time to make a change. This usually means you don't know what is coming, but you are so ready to leave behind your old habits and your old ways. So, yeah. As a journey by water in the old days, a journey of consciousness as we understand it in this century. Literally, I don't know how I'm going to end up at the end of this, but I know I need to grow. I know I need to go to therapy. I know I need to change my social circle. I know I need to change my lifestyle habits. I know I need to, like, whatever it is, I know I need to reach out of my comfort zone and meet new, different people, have different experiences, whatever that might look like for you, reaching for different, I don't know, certification in your job, whatever. This is smart people stuff. This is intellectual stuff. This is intellect, decision, boundary stuff. Whatever your sort of version of your native intelligence is saying, I admit I'm ready to learn what I don't know. So yeah, there it is. That card is all about undertaking the journey. Blondie says, I need this card as a reminder a lot. Yeah. I actually, when this card comes up, I always think this is a sign of positive and welcome change. Because in the card, the person is like, you know what? Let's do it. As compared to some of the other cards where it might feel like I should grow, but this feels like I'm dying inside. This card is like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go. Let's sign up. Let's go for the adventure. Mandy started to unpack today. Finally, I had to go back to work. Plus, you got sick. No, don't be sick. Boo. Please be careful. Please don't get sick. I hope that you were just like regular old flu-y sick. As you can hear, my voice is a little shot. We feel like we blew our voices out over the weekend. I didn't even have to do 10 shows. I don't know why my voice is shot. Allergies killed us on the way home. I will say New Orleans is it's not dusty. Maryland was, Zoran and me were, and our whole family was just, we were dying from the dust in Maryland because it was so intense, and also the straw if you're allergy inclined. So compared to that, I thought I was doing great. But I will say, New Orleans, that it's a giant swamp. So I feel like my sort of mold humidity based allergies kicked up a little bit, and that might be why I sound like this. So everybody take care of your allergies. Oh, Axio, did you ever get your general allergy thing? Like, it seems like it settled down, but you ever get a handle on what was going on there? All right, 7. Let's push through these. 7 of Swords. This card appeals to me greatly as a classic Gemini. There's usually something like of a scene of stealth. Somebody's usually sneaking around in here. There's like a black ship on the horizon. There's like a jagged whirlpool, kind of a Scylla and Charybdis feel. This person is either stealing or hiding swords. The swords in this case represent your tools. This is the card that the shadow expression of this is manipulation of the facts. Added its sort of giftiest version, its most benevolent, is tact and diplomacy. So this card comes up when it is, for example, if you do taxes, we are as citizens of a society that has to pay for roads and education and 911 that works and libraries and so forth. We are morally obligated to pay something in if we are able to make a functional society in order to be, fair and equal participant. However, nobody wants to pay more than they are legally obligated, because we also generally all take umbrage with some of how money gets spent. So just in relationship, for example, to taxes, there's that question about how much do you agree to go along with the rules. This card is the part that helps you decide when you're min-maxing your stats. This card is like, if my goal is to buy a house or whatever, then perhaps I need to make sure that the numbers represent my best self. If I am trying to get, I don't know, financial aid for my graduate degree or something, I probably need to make sure that my documentation shows me at my most vulnerable and under-resourced. Both of those things can be legal options depending how well you do taxes, but they express very different aspects of this card, which is to say the sevens are about evaluation and careful employment of your tools. Swords are all about decisions and intellect and what we choose to communicate. So at its best, it is diplomacy, saying, how can we meet in the middle in order to accomplish this goal? And manipulation and stealth may be like, what kind of distraction do I need to create in order to safely exit this situation? Those are aspects of the same thing, and this card asks you to consider which one is which. All right, what did you say, Axio? Oh. So one of our players just was having a crazy allergic reaction, kind of came there with them over the tour, but it flared up, and we were very concerned about making sure that they got their needs met so they could have a good time and enjoy all of the fun. So I hope it works. Yeah, I mean, you looked much better partway through. Like I'm glad to see that it wasn't so aggravating, at least for a bit. All right, 8 of Swords. We're in the home stretch because we're just going ace to 10 today. And kudos to everybody who's hung in this long. 8 of Swords, 8. So here we see person. They appear to be all bound up. They are staggering through the dark. The ground is mined with swords. What in the world is going on in this situation? Looks rather dark. Like I said, the swords cards look perilous. This card, once again, is literally about the trouble we get ourselves in. When the 8 comes up, we feel like our options have been limited. We feel like we don't have all the information. We feel like we are staggering through the dark in a field of peril. Too many options or not enough clarity about each option. And yet, if you look at that card closely, the person doesn't really appear to be tied up very effectively. It's like they're just sort of rolled up in a roll of toilet paper or something. Like it's just loose and shabby. Also, they are moving through a dark landscape, but these swords are laying flat on the ground. If you don't panic, move slowly and with deliberation, you may be able to navigate perfectly well using your other senses. In other words, don't rely strictly on your intellect. Use your brains to remind you not to panic. Use your brains to ask yourself, is this that thing I always do? Is this that bad roommate situation or landlord situation or relationship situation I always get in? If I keep finding myself here, is it possible I can unwrap myself and get out of this situation? Or is this the part where I just can't resist panicking and I'm going to run and fall and bang my head on a tree? It's kind of a card of self-sabotage, but the 8 in general is a nice, like 8s in general are stable. So you are encouraged to use your smarts for some self-analysis and try to get out of the situation. And again, the imagery in this card, there's a snake and a bat and an owl, and they're all kind of looking on and being like, man, why do humans make it so hard? So 2 more cards, home stretch. These are the grimmest in the deck as far as this goes. 9 of Swords. This is the terror card of every person who's ever had a dependent in need. Whether that's an aging parent, an ill child. The 9 of Swords is the card that comes up when we are being tormented by worries. It literally comes up for sleeplessness, for folks who are anxious, folks who are hypervigilant, like in the PTSD kind of mode. 9 swords in a world of so many decisions and so many options. This image usually shows one sword is real, like there's a real sword jammed in the ground next to the bed or over the bed headboard. The rest of them are kind of floating. And the message in this card is you may have very legitimate cause for concern. Again, using the metaphor of a dependent, parent or a child. Like maybe you have a parent who cannot live on their own anymore, or you have a child who is out driving around drunk with their friends because that's what teenagers do, or whatever it is for you. You're afraid they might be making bad decisions, and they might be making bad decisions because of either a lack of wisdom or a loss of wisdom. This card counsels you that there are some things you can deal with. You can try to create the conditions for them to succeed. You can try to create some fail safes and so forth. But ultimately, you cannot control everything. So that one sword is the part that's real. You are asked to look at everything else and say, how much of the rest of this is you just sort of torturing yourself beyond the realm of what is useful? How much is self-torture versus how much is a useful way to address your concerns? Like, is there anything you can do about it laying awake at night at 1 a.m. that isn't better addressed by a well-rested person first thing in the morning? If you're getting a bad call in the middle of the night, you're getting it whether you were awake or not. Just keep your ringers on and try to move with care through your life. This card says, you're not wrong, but what are you going to do about it? Nina Lee says, just a reminder, Madame Onça has her limited Yuletide mugs and ornaments available. Hey, check this out. The mugs aren't even on my Etsy page. They're actually on, here's one right here. There it says, let us sing and make merry. That's the Merry Lwyd from Wales, the rap horse. And here is Krampus. Hopefully you can see it in there. It's that Krampus time of year. Our own Mab Just Mab and I made a collaboration of these this year. And so you can actually buy these either from me or directly, or you can buy them on Mab's Mobile Mercantile, because Mab is hard at work in her shop, holding things together while she tries to find a new job. Yes, thank you, exactly. And so we got mugs that you get from me, or if you can get them from Mab. Mab is probably set up to ship them better, to be perfectly honest, because she's better at that sort of thing. But I have ornaments galore. So if you want to, Blondie says we have 3 mugs. Yes, they come in, they're all white, but they come with the black, the red, or the green, as I thought those were the most Yule-tidey sort of colors. We do have all the ornaments, too. If you haven't seen any of those here, you can check those out on my Etsy store, which is Madame Onça Studios. And there are 10 different ornaments. Possibly only 9 of them are up, somebody pointed out, because I have been very busy. Oh, including our very own Jawses. So I've got some of those, and those were made in collaboration with Nina Lee. So if I sell out, I will have to run to Nina Lee and try to order another batch that we can make together. I will be leaving for Italy on December 17th. So I will be unable to ship you anything at that point. So if there's anything you want, Yuletide Monster mugs, Oracle decks, ornaments, Krampus Carol stuff, or any of my other things, please order them before that, because I am shipping like mad. And once I leave on December 17th, we're going on a family trip with Paulo's mom, and then we're actually running a tour right after that. So I'm not actually going to get back to the States till the middle of January. So if you want anything, order it now. Okay, last card, and then we will wrap it up. And thank you. Sally says they are amazing. I know a bunch of our folks have gotten them, and some of our folks on the tour ordered ornaments, which I was pleased to be able to deliver to them in person. And also, you guys may not know, but I gave some to our DMs too, because I wanted to give them something cool for being so awesome. Okay, last card here in our Ace to 10. This is the 10 of Swords. This is actually the most aggravating card probably in the whole deck. Behold the figure of Osiris being stabbed through many times by his jerky brother, Set, with Isis standing in the back. And she is either going, I better help put them back together, or I better hold it together until I can try to put them back together. If you're familiar with the story, Set and Osiris are brothers, and they are rivals, and they continuously work to sabotage each other. Finally, the jackal-headed god, who incidentally, they say he had the red hair rather than Anubis, who you may think of as the black jackal-headed god, because they associated with the red hair with the Celtic people, who they thought were crazy barbarians, and also with malnutrition, because of course, through much of Africa, if your hair is yellow or orange, it means that you're actually a person of melanin but poor nutrition. So they associate it with sort of death and freakiness, not a compliment, which is why I made him super pale and very gingery, like so many of our good ginger friends. They were rivals, and he finally succeeded in tricking his brother into a situation where he could chop him into little pieces and throw all the body parts into the River Nile. And Isis was able to find most of the parts and reassemble him, which is why we see him as a dying and resurrected god, because that myth is a very old myth and ties in with John Barleycorn and the idea that the spirit of the land dies and is reborn with the seasons. That's all to say, this card is horrible when you are experiencing it, but Isis is there to try to help you get through, and that sun is maybe setting on Osiris now, but it will be rising on him later when she uses her goddessly magic to try to help him get it back together. So what does a 10 of Swords mean for you? This card feels more like death often than the actual death card. When the death card comes up, we know you can generally say, not a card of violent death, but it is a card of radical transformation in your life. Usually by the time the death card comes up, you know you're already done. You're so done with that relationship, or done with this phase, or done with this job. It's just, you're just smelling the compost of the decomposing thing that is whatever it was you used to be attached to. That's the death card. This card usually feels like you're being run through with the shocking change of circumstance or betrayal that the card represents. 10s are always the sort of maximum expression of the suit. So when you get to 10 swords, that is 10 layers of decisions. You negotiated and you tried and you did do your due diligence and you survived and you learned and you explored and you tried to fix your stuff in the 8 and figure out what damages you could undo. And the 9, you were tortured worrying about someone else and things you couldn't control. And the 10, you're fucking done. If you'll forgive my swearing. This card usually feels like the tragic closure of a situation. The good news is it is not a definitive. Tarot doesn't tend to talk about, terminal endings. It does just talk about a situation that is very, very done. And again, Isis is there to say, it's terrible, but later you will be put back together and you'll be smarter and kind of immortal because you survived this thing. So that takes us Ace through 10. I want to applaud everybody who hung in. This was a longer little show than usual, but apparently I was very excited to talk to everybody here tonight. If you have questions about any of those cards, again, Ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That was wandering through the dark wrapped in toilet paper. Hey, there's a cat. 9 or 10. Now is the time. 1 more hour at the time to chime in. We're going to try to get Zoran on here to do a rune show or something with you all, because that's something they know about that I don't know nothing about. Hey, Bungalow Glow, you learned a lot. I am glad. There's so much to learn about the tarot. There's not only my personal 30 years of experience, but there are, of course, centuries upon centuries of information. Hey, buddy. Halloweeny Beans just came in. He's very excited to check it out. I am delighted to share everything that I can with you and my own continual learning. Thank you, Blondie. Me too. Runes, go for it, right? We just need to get Zoran set up to be stream worthy on that front, because it's just got to have the right camera and a decent mic that doesn't get knocked out of the plug when your husband comes in the room. Yeah. So tarot, there's so much to learn. Keeping a journal really does help. The Magician is the best card. I know, right? Particularly in this deck. Very handsome. What else can I tell you? I think that there's probably not a lot else going on in the channel this week. Maybe Nina Lee or somebody knows. I don't actually know. But I know for us, we are going to be trying to unpack and cook and prep for the 80s all day tomorrow. And then our kid's birthday party. So let's admit it. I have no idea what's going on the channel this week. For all I know, everybody's doing everything, but I suspect no one's doing anything. Perhaps somebody who's not me will know. I'm just happy to be here. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday, however you celebrate that, be that maximum turkey or veganism or Chinese food or just sleeping in the whole time. I know that we'll be back in action with some kind of programming next week, because that's what we do. I don't think that we start another formal campaign on Tuesday nights. Correct me if anybody knows. I don't think we have another formal campaign until we get settled back from Italy in January, because we're traveling so much in the next little bit. And right now we're just happy to be at our house with our stuff and our cats and everything. If you want to order anything, please do it as soon as possible. If you want to contact me off Etsy, you can do that too. If you have my contact information, we can sidestep some of the Etsy fees and all that stuff. You can at least look on Etsy and see what there is. That is Madame with an E, Madame, Madame Onça, ONCA Studios. You'll know it by all of my Yuletide Monsters stuff on there. And if you want to buy stuff, great. If you just want to hang out, great. We will be available on and off, trying to make things happen over here for our family for the next couple weeks. And there's probably some formal way I'm supposed to figure out how to close this show. I have no idea. I want to see how you do the 80s themed instead of the disco turkey. Like, do we just spray paint it neon? I honestly have no idea. I figure I'm just probably going to dress like Madonna, because I don't really know what else to do. Like, based on what I have in the closet. Again, one of our kids is dressing as Adamant, so that's going to be pretty great. All right, I'm looking. Do I have an outro? I do. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Oop, I missed a comment. Boop. Neon and big hair. Right. Edible glitter. One of our people is really good at the cooking for the time period, so we'll probably end up with some edible glitter. All right, I'm going to try to run the generic outro, and I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday, whatever you do. Get some rest, recover from your allergies, practice your tarot, and I will see you soon.